midbar there was nothing to eat. So the Eibush sent them a special food from heaven, and the food tasted like tzapichas b'dvash. So the kid raised the Rebbe, what does tzapichas b'dvash mean? He wants to eat them Yitzchak Avinu. And Yitzchak Avinu was the only son of Avraham Avinu, and he was an Achei Temimim. It was not a Levi Yisrael. And he married Rivka, and he had to go find a wife in Chutz La'aretz. That's why Mitoseh Shleima. Second of all, the end of his life went into Mitzrayim. And even though by him it was good, when he passed away, and his children passed away, it became a terrible galus. And finally the galus was over, and Eibush took Yid Nadim Mitzrayim, put them on the mid. There was no food. He sent a special food, and the food tasted kitzapichet b'dvash. He says, Rebbe, what is tzapichet b'dvash mean? He said, you don't understand. It was only to Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was and he went back till other Medishin. And then I can't explain it better. I can't explain it better. You don't understand. I can't explain it better. Anyway, we're going to talk about das. I can't explain it better. I'm avoiding the subject because I don't know what to say. But I want to tell you two things this morning. Okay, I'm starting without a text. Two things I want to share with you today. But I need you to pay attention. For this, you have to put your brain on to 55%, which is high for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but Shir on Das is like top stuff.
But you have to have a teacher who knows how to teach it. It's not just the subject; it's the deliverer. And
that's a Midra or part of it?
Yeah, it's part of the brain. I want to share with you two things. I want to share with you two ideas that are classic to Hasidic thinking. They're classic to Hasidic thinking. I'm not going to say necessarily that they're Hasidus. They may be from before Hasidus. They may be from philosophy. But they're ideas which are very deeply bound to the way Hasidus looks at the reality of the world. And I'll first tell you the two ideas. I will tell you the labels of the two subjects. Then I'm going to explain to you each one separately. And this is going to be our segue after going through Chochmah and going through Bina to understand what Das means a little bit, I hope. Okay? Statement number one. Torah believes that ideas comes before things, not after. But first the Eibush created ideas, and then in the image of those ideas he made the world. But there are the ideas as they exist in the theoretical level. Now, the significance of this statement, that Torah holds that ideas came before things, is the following. Your neshama knows all ideas. Your neshama knows everything. You don't, but your neshama does. The reason your neshama knows everything is because your neshama also from before. Just like ideas exist from before, your neshama knows all of those ideas. When your neshama finds a new idea, where did the neshama find that idea? The neshama found that idea in your neshama, and I'm going to get in your soul. Your neshama knows the idea in a place which is before the idea became a thing in the world. That's the first thing. Okay, so the statement is ideas exist before the things. Statement number two. There's a huge distinction between understanding a concept in theory and experiencing that concept in the reality of the world. It's a very big difference between reading a book and understanding what the hypothetical situation is and knowing what the people in the real world are experiencing and feeling. Okay, so the two statements that are the segue to today's class, number one, ideas come before things, and number two, there's a big difference between understanding ideas in theory and knowing those ideas in the context of the real world. So let's start, okay? If you understand the philosophy of Chassidus, Shalom, can I bother you?
I have to get coffee.
So bring a cup of water also while you're there. And you'll close the door. If you truly understand the philosophy, Nissen Ben Sion, good morning. I love to say that name. If you truly understand Chassidus, you will understand I have to write that poem called Moving Bodies. Walking slowly is like pulling off a Band-Aid slowly. You know what I'm saying?
Try not to make noise.
I get it. If you understand Chassidus correctly, you know. You know what? I just realized. I already have a couple of others. I got two. Thank you. I'll take it. I took it myself and I forgot. I'm a special level of genius. It doesn't make me smart. It just makes me absent-minded. If you truly understand Chassidus, you understand the meaning of the statement. There's nothing new under the sun. There's no such thing as new, and I'll tell you why and how.
Say that, do you mean that they all exist potential?
Wait, I'll explain it. I'm not going to leave you guessing. Hashem can do anything. Hashem can do anything, right? Hashem's possibilities are infinite. But Hashem has no lacks. Hashem isn't missing anything. So on some philosophical and mystical level, anything that could be already is. There is a place in Hashemliness up there, and it's very complicated. He talks about it a lot, where anything that could be actually is. In other words, how many different worlds can Hashem create? An infinite number of different worlds, with infinite number of different possibilities, infinite number of cities. Now, when you use the word infinity, it sounds like a full pie of pizza. You have no idea how incredibly powerful that world is. Because that word is, because it truly denotes something which our brain cannot possibly comprehend. Hashem could create an infinite number of possible universes. Okay, now, if he could create an infinite possible number of universes, there is a place where they exist in the Eibishterliness, okay, in his potential, in his possibility. Now, when the Eibishter chose this one, what happened? What changed? It is an infinite number of universes, yeah. Hashem can do anything he wants. And he can do it in any way he wishes. And he chose to make it this way. What happened? Hashem took 1 minus infinity, which of course mathematically makes no sense, but it's a different conversation. He said, this one, we're going to go with. So what changed? So the more Chassidus you learn, and the more you understand after Hashem, you understand that to him nothing changed. There was an infinite number of possible worlds before. There's an infinite number of possible worlds after. This one he's actualizing, but not to him. To us. In other words, the way the world existed before the world existed, because every possibility already exists, it continues to exist. But not any change. Now, if you fully think through what I'm saying, it'll make you fall down. It's dizzying. And I want you to know the person who said this first was not Chassidus. The person who said this first was the Rambam. When the Rambam wrote, Hu Hayedei and Hu Hayedu and Hu Amad. Now when you read about it in the Mishnah Torah, you don't fully understand it. But in Meir Nevuchim Chelik Aleph, I'm almost sure it's Perek Samaches. If it's not Samaches, it's Samaches. Chapter 68, in a few pages, the Rambam never takes a long time to explain anything. The Rambam's magical ability to say things quickly and clearly is unique. There's one Rambam, Mimoshe ad Moshe Loi Kom Kamoshe, is extraordinary. In one Perek, he tells you what I just told you. How could the Eibishter be involved in a changing world? He's not. But what does the world that's changed? As before he made the world already existed. And whatever's going to happen already happened. And to him, nothing changed. Nothing changed. The only change is you'll stop waving at me because I don't know the mood of waving back, but I'm not stopping. Give me a couple of minutes. Let me talk a little. So there's this profound idea, and the more you learn it, the crazier it makes you. That there's no chiddush except to us. To Hashem, whatever was is. And whatever is was meant to be. And there's no shinoi whatsoever. There's no change at all. To him. That means, before the world was a world, it was already a world. Before the world was a world, it was already a world. And everything the world is going to entail, before it was entailed, existed. Including ideas. Including ideas. One of the great questions of philosophy, and we talked about this in earlier classes, is the question of logic. Is logic an absolute truth or a created truth? Everybody knows that logic works. Logic is a system that judges things, that discriminates things in a unique way. Right? And I suppose the purest form of logic, just for the purposes of being honest, is what you and I would call mathematics, because it's totally theoretical. Mathematics is not connected to anything except the ideas themselves. Is logic true, or is logic true because Hashem decided it should be true in this universe, and in a different universe it had a different set of rules? So it turns out to be a machlaikis. It's a machlaikis. The philosophers say logic is truth, and the Kabbalists, and we're one of those, we hold nimna nimnois, Hashem is not bound by the laws of logic. We hold that God created logic. Now, to our conversation, it makes no difference. It doesn't make a difference to us whether logic is a created truth and absolute truth. Here's the point. When this world existed, before the Eibush ever made it, the logic of this world also existed. So any idea that this universe is going to tolerate, beginning with the ideas that Poshet explained the chemistry, the physics, and the chemistry, and the biology, right? The dead matter, and the pieces of living matter, and then the living things. And then on top of physics and chemistry and biology, you have such wonderful things as psychology. Yeah. And then you have the idea of abstract reasoning. People are very incredible creations. God made human beings. Whether you hold that logic is truth, or you hold that logic is a created truth, in this universe, logic reigns supreme. The Eibush made this world to operate according to the principles of logic. The whole reality, including the logic of this reality, existed before the reality existed. So, when someone discovers an idea, did he create that idea? There's only one answer. There's only one way the answer to that question is yes. If it's a false idea, they say, this chiddush is so great, even Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't mechadish it, A krum esvara, a false idea, is true because it doesn't exist. But if something is logically true and coherent and consistent, just like everything else in the creation, it existed before the creation, because in God everything is. So wait, hear me out, just listen. A little patience. Every neshama, every human being, and I'm not saying that this is true of animals, but every human being, and certainly every Jew has a divine soul, but on some level I think it's true of all of humanity, was given a nefesh hasichlis, an intellectual soul. And the intellectual soul is looking for ideas and finding ideas. But where do they really find those ideas? I need your attention. Hello, everybody, wake up. Stop dreaming and wake. Listen to me. I'm talking to the walls. Hiya, I need your attention. When a person comes up, my editor sent me a message this morning. I edited the Ayin Beis class, and I took out all the screaming. Thank you very much. Okay, what are you going to do?
Wasn't there a time where the minute wasn't coming to stand by the sheet?
Okay, Rabbi, there was a very long time ago. The early Tanoim, not the early Tanoim. Rabbi Levi. In today's generation, the teacher stands, the teacher gives hugs and kisses, and the students are happy that they show up. You want to make learning great again, you got to bring Mashiach. Rabbi, you want to make learning great again, you got to bring Mashiach. Okay, listen. So if a person comes up with an idea, where did the idea come from? That idea came to the consciousness in the person from the place where ideas existed before people existed, and before the world existed, because everything existed before it existed, including every single idea. So when you come up with a concept, when you come up with an idea, that idea is coming from somewhere. It's coming from somewhere where that idea already exists. So why yesterday you didn't know it, and now you know it? So let me make sure you're clear about this, right? Hashem can do anything. And because Hashem can do anything, Hashem lacks nothing. So whatever He could, He did already, on some level. So this world and everything that's ever going to happen in time and space and in matter has already occurred. And to Him there's no nafkamina from before to after it all. That's the pshat to ayadei and ayadu and amada. The changes to us, the things are stretched out over time, and things are spread out over space and different bodies. Okay, so everything that is was, including every idea. So when you discover an idea, you're not really creating it, you're finding it in your neshama. So one second, you gotta let me talk. So now the question becomes, if every idea existed before it existed in the neshama, why didn't I know it before? And the correct answer to the question is, my neshama doesn't speak English, or French, or Portuguese, or Polish, or Hebrew. In fact, the neshama speaks without words, which is impossible for us to relate to. In mystical terms, the neshama speaks the language of light. But there's different kinds of light. There's the light of emotions, the light of the senses, there's the light of ideas. But light without words we cannot grasp. So when you're developing an idea, when you're creating an idea, when you're discovering an idea, you're simply bringing the idea to you. And Chassidus would argue, when you're bringing the idea to you, you're making it less. Because the idea that you're understanding consciously was once part of a soup of ideas that's infinite. And when you extract it, when you bring it forward from the subconscious to the consciousness, you're isolating it, you're singling it out. It should be small enough that your brain should be able to wrap around it. So here's the old story. Here is the old story. You go over to a blind person, a group of 10 blind men, and you put them in front of an elephant, and you say, tell me what you feel. And one person tells you the elephant is a tree trunk. Young man, move fast, you're disturbing his shears. Another person tells you that an elephant is a hose. Another person tells you an elephant is a spear. Another person tells you that it's an oil tank. Another person tells you it's a fan for flies. Who's right? They're all right. But they're all wrong. An elephant is not a tree trunk, it is not a tank for gas, and it's not a hose. It's a living being that's made up of many components. But if you see only one part, you have a distortion. That's what happens. When ideas become smaller and smaller, they become narrower and narrower. So understand this. Every idea that you'll ever espouse, assuming it's true, existed in your nefesh before it existed. When you bring it forward from your nefesh, you're separated from the world of ideas. And separated from the world of ideas, you have only a piece of the greater body of ideas. And if you have only a piece of the greater body of ideas, the truth of that idea is like saying an elephant is a tree trunk. The truth of that idea is limited to what you see. So you may understand an idea, you may understand that idea correctly, but your context may be completely wrong because you don't see the big picture. But nobody sees the big picture. Because to see the big picture, you got to be God. Do you understand what I just said? Yeah? This is idea number one. The first posit of this shir is that all ideas exist before they existed in the Hashem, and all ideas existed before they existed in the neshama of a person. When those ideas emerge from the neshama of the person to the conscious mind of the person, they become pieces. And because they become pieces, they lose context. And because they lose context, you may understand it correctly and have an idea which is completely false. Or to say it in the language in the last couple of days, your judgment may seem right to you, but it's completely wrong. Now you can speak, one at a time. We'll start with the Kohen.
Would that mean that the world existed completely? Like it was fully?
Yeah, well, it's a big lumdus. But the short answer is yes, and please don't ask me any questions on this. I don't want to go there. Go ahead.
You said that...
But again, what's so crazy about this, as the first person to say this was not a Makubal, it's a Rambam. And the Rambam explains it so simply. Everything the Rambam explains is simple. Hashem knows the future. So Hashem knows the future to him always existed. If the future to him always existed, the future doesn't make changes in him. It's so simple. Go ahead.
You said there was infinite worlds and just this one he actualized, but to us.
Correct.
But does that mean the other possibility of worlds, do they also give him mitzvahs?
Ha.
What do they do? Or?
See, so this comes down to a fundamental question. It's a really fundamental question. And the fundamental question is the Eibishter a liar? Will Hashem tell a lie? And I'll explain to you the lie. Hashem says, Mi ka'amcha ki Yisrael b'yachad ba'aretz. The God of Echad says, I have Echad, one nation, which is the Jewish people. And I have Echad, I have one Torah, which I gave to the Jewish people of this earth. Okay. But there's many Pizgamim that speak to the idea that there's only one Torah, not just Ba'aret. Are there different universes where there's different Yidden and different Torahs, and when he tells us there's only one, he means only in this universe? In other words, when he says that there's no other like this one, is he saying it to us and he's telling somebody else another story, or is it for him true? If the Eibishter doesn't lie and he says there's one Torah and one nation and one land, then the other universes only exist in theory. If the Eibishter could tell that story to us and a different story to a different universe, there could be infinite different universes with infinite Moshe Rabbeinus and infinite Avraham Avinus and infinite Bnei Shammos Yisrael in different ways. We hold that the Eibishter doesn't lie. And I think this is an idea that the Rebbe underscores. The same idea that the Rebbe says there could be life on other planets, but they can't be intelligent life because there's only one Torah. The Rebbe holds that that's not just true in this universe, that's true in God. Because the Eibush doesn't lie. I'm not going to even have that conversation. I trust the Rebbe, you don't have to. You don't have to, I give you permission. Go ahead.
It says in the that before Hashem created the world was created light, but Hashem created the world, all the worlds were always created.
Okay, these are details. The evolution. In other words, even though it always existed, he didn't have it emerge in the singularity. He had it emerge in what we call lyhadus, steps. Why? Because he wants it to seem to us like it's real and like it's being developed. Avraham Baruch.
You said that truth was basically something that's created, and that all ideas existed before, but unless it's false. If an idea is false, it still must have existed before, because there could be contradictions, and because truth is only something that's created, which means that the idea wouldn't be false for him, which means that it should have existed always for them.
I am going to ask you a very unpleasant question because I have more respect for you than you could imagine. Did you think that question through?
Yeah, I mean, I have an answer, but...
Okay, tell me your answer.
That it does exist. That it's not false for him, and that it could be that it only seems false to us because we don't have the correct context. What I'm saying is that it's something that could be false even within context.
So, in other words, you're saying that false is really true. Is there a concept of a false which is absolutely really false?
Yeah.
So do those ideas exist? But if they're absolutely false, how do they exist? Because in him they're true? How does that work?
Because there is no concept of truth by him. You said that it's something that truth is only something that's created.
I mean, the elephant through the needle.
Truth is absolute. Truth is the Eibishter. Whoa. No, I never said that.
Logic and truth are not connected.
First of all, fundamentally, basically, they're connected. Logic, well, the whole point is that logic before it existed already existed. Not that it was created, it existed before it existed. So a logic which is flawed, before the flawed logic existed, wasn't. Because it exists only in the mind. I always tell people, what's between a lie and a truth? If nobody knows the truth, it still exists. Lies only believe in the minds of the people who choose to believe them. If nobody believes a lie, it just disappears. The truth of the lie is not the lie, it's the believer. Anybody else want to comment? Because I'm moving on to the next thing, Kobe Shlita. Huh?
Should I ask another question, or are you still talking to me?
Baruch, am I still talking to you? He's thinking about it, but while he thinks, he can talk to me.
When you draw down from the idea soup, is that when it's a new idea or when it's a
on the highest level, where it's a new idea, in a realistic way, it's all, whatever people, for them, is new. For them, it's in some aspect drawing down from the soup in quotation.
Only when it's new.
When it's new, it's called the Chiddush. When it's new, it's considered yours. Nikras al Shmoy, it's considered your Torah. It came from the Eibush Torah, it's considered Abayis and Ravas and Hillels and Shammais. Harav Shalom Shlita.
What's it called? We know the saying
It's
that
called Mashiach, it's called Geula, it's called Simcha, it's called Brias, it's called Atzlach, it's called Nachas, it's called Shalom, it's called the Eibush Torah. Go ahead.
we know the saying that Hashem can make a needle go through elephant go through the eye of a needle, which isn't logical at all, but it's true. So Hashem could do it. So I guess like technically, I'm saying like to us it's a falsehood. Like that's like a.
But when Chassidus says that the Eibush can make an elephant go through an eye with a needle, Chassidus doesn't say the Eibush can make an elephant go through an eye with a needle, and the elephant going through the eye of a needle is logical.
But it's the idea that it's real.
You see, how do you define the word idea? If you define the word idea by logic, that's not an idea. It's like, yeah, Chassidus says Hashem can do nimna nimnois. And then you have Lubavitch Chassidim who are trying to explain nimna nimnois. Chassidus says it doesn't make sense, but they're going to explain it. You get befuddled. It doesn't make sense. In other words, the question that I started with, is logic absolutely true? Is logic a created truth? Speaks to this. We hold that the Eibush can do things that are above logic. When the Eibush does it above logic, that's what they are. They're above logic. They're not logic. Our conversation is not about the Eibush. Our conversation is about logic. We are talking about ideas. We're in a box. We're talking about the use of your mind. You have a brain. It's meant to study the world and understand it well enough to have opinions about it. Now introducing to this scheme this very, very disturbing new idea called Das. We've beaten around the bush for a month to avoid Das as long as we could, because we don't want to talk about it, because we don't know what we're going to say. I'm talking about me. But I can't beat around the bush anymore. The bush is broken and dead and torn up and nothing left of it. So I have to get to Das, yeah? We're talking about ideas, logic. We're not talking about the Eibush, the laws of logic as the Eibush that created them. Okay, so in the realms of logic, every idea that existed before it existed, but it existed in a unified state. It existed in a unified state. When you extract it from that unified state and you bring it into the real world, it's a piece. And you may understand that piece very well, but you may understand that piece out of context. You got it? Oh.
Is there such thing as truth without logic then?
Yeah, but it's not a logical truth. It's an absolute truth. Hashem is the truth without logic. According to us, Hashem is the truth without logic. According to philosophers, Hashem is the truth of logic, because they hold that the two are the same. What's on your mind?
According to them, so how do you explain so many different miracles that happen in the world? Such several things.
Okay, not now. You want to learn it, go take the books. The books exist. No, you're not asking me a question in our conversation. That's a question on the Meir Nevuchim. Learn the Meir Nevuchim. The Rambam talks about all these questions. He's a smart guy. He got it all figured out. He's going to blow your mind. He's going to blow your mind. He's going to push it explode. But he answers all these questions. But leave it alone. Anybody else have anything to say? Topic number 2. Okay, so Chevra, I want you to appreciate what just happened. We spent I don't know how much time with all the Yosef and Nichnases, with all of the regular bodies in motion, Shlita, making one point. One point is every idea before it existed also existed. It emerged from some hypothetical, from ephemeral space into the manifest state. But when that happens, it becomes detailed, becomes specific. Now I want you to think about the same idea, but I want you to see it from the opposite angle. And the opposite angle is ideas exist in the real world. And there's an incredible difference between understanding an idea in theory and understanding that idea as it plays out in the real world. Like the famous joke that they tell. There was a kid who was an Eli, was a genius. He went to the best yeshivas, he had smich at 14, and he was given the greatest accolades. At 18, they made him a rav of a big city because it was a Gadol B'Yisrael. And a simple woman came in to him and she says, Rebbe, kick, in pipik is do a noodle. In the pipik of the chicken there's a needle, is it kosher or treif? So the Rav takes a look at the chicken, he says, if this is a pipik or that's a needle, if this is a pupik, because I never saw one in my life, and this is a needle, because I never saw that in my life, then it's treif. There's an extraordinary difference between understanding an idea as the idea is by itself and understanding that idea in the real world. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a really poignant example for this. I don't like the example because it's about Yishmael, and I'm not in love with Yishmael these days. Okay? But it's a real example for this. And you have it, it's brought in the Gemara. Sarah kicks Yishmael and Hagar out of the house. Why? Because she was jealous, right? Because all Yishmael tried to do was kill Yitzchak. I mean, he's a very innocent boy, but all he tried to do was kill him. He just shot at. He says, "You'll play animal and I'll play hunter," and he shot real bullets at him. You know, all he tried to do was kill him. Why did you get so upset? They were just playing. He tried to kill him, for heaven's sakes. So Sarah kicks him out of the house. How old was Yishmael? He was a teenager. Yishmael was 14 years older than Yitzchak. And if they're old enough to play, and Mr. Yitzchak was 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. So if he's 14 years older than him, and Yitzchak was 4 years old, he was 17. He was a big boy. Big lumberjack of a kid. And Rashi says, Sarah's evil eye got into Yishmael, and he couldn't walk. So Hagar is schlepping him, literally schlepping him through the desert with a noid of mayim. Noid means an animal skin. It didn't have a barrel. It was an animal skin. It was waterproof, so the water wouldn't leak out, but it was pliable. They used to use animal skins for holding water, not casks. It's easier. It's waterproof, you know. And the guy's burning up with fever, and he's drinking water like as if he's overheating, and he finished up the water, and he's dying of thirst. And Hagar throws him underneath a bush. And she can't do anything for him because they're in no place. They're in the desert. She has to get to Mitzrayim. She's hundreds of miles from Mitzrayim, or dozens of miles from Mitzrayim. She's nowhere. She's out of water. He's going to die from thirst. So she puts him down under a brush and she goes and she cries. So the Chazal say, Rashi brings it in Chumash, that in the heavens there becomes a tumult she'ein kedigmat. The Malachim are screaming, let him die. The Malachim are screaming, let him die. Why are the Malachim screaming, let him die? Because his children are going to kill your children through thirst. The very same Misa. Not Stam, they're going to kill Yidden. They're going to kill Yidden through thirst. It brings a Chazal that when the Yidden were taken away by Bayis Rishon, by Nebuchadnezzar, by Nebuchadnezzar. So the Jews were terribly, they're taken away in chains. And they said, bring us to our brothers, the Bnei Yishmael, Heim Yerachmu Aleinu. The Ishmaelites are our cousins. They're Yitzchak's brothers' children. And they'll have Rachmanos on us. So the Ishmaelim came along and they gave them very, very tasty, salty fish. Esther, Jews were starving, so they eat. They need water. So they gave them these big neidis nefuchim, these blown up animal skins, but they were full of poison. There was no water inside. And the Jews opened up these animal skins, they tried to drink it, and the air, whatever kind of air was, their lungs, and they died. In other words, the Ishmaelim didn't kill you. They killed them through thirst, which was one of the worst deaths possible. To die from dehydration was the worst deaths possible. So the Malachim say to the Eibishter, this guy's kids are going to kill your children through this Misa. Let them die. And the Eibishter answers the Malachim with the words, Ba'asher hu sham. Which means, I hear you. But Ba'ois Shah, right now, Tzaddik or Rasha, what is Yishmael's condition this minute? Don't tell me about yesterday and don't tell me about tomorrow. Right now, Ba'asher, what's his condition right now? Is he righteous? Does he deserve to die or does he not deserve to die?
Didn't he just try killing Yitzchak?
also true. And the Malachim said, yeah, he's a tzaddik. And the Eibishter opened up Hagar's eyes and she found the well and she gave him to drink. That's such a disturbing pasuk. And it's particularly disturbing that we read Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, the first day, we read the first day. We read the story about Asher Usham. Now, of course, we read Rosh Hashanah not because of Yishmael, it's because everybody should look at us the same way. But that is not just hypothetical, Thirst for thirst. You're killing a person with thirst, you should die of thirst. Mida keneged mida. There's another component. The other component is the real world. And when you add the real world to a scenario, everything changes. So there's a very big difference between knowing an idea and knowing an idea in the real world. You can have people, if dinitated, people go to the dinitatus. And the halacha is that you're not allowed to treat a judgment of $1 any different than you treat a judgment of $1 billion. But if you're a Rav who sits on Choshen Mishpat cases, business cases, that involve large amounts of money, you can't just know the Choshen Mishpat. You have to understand money. You have to understand business. You have to understand the real world. You have to understand business people. You have to understand so many realistic things to give a correct psak. It's not the pshat that there's a bias. It's the pshat. It's a part of the psak. If you don't know what a pupik is, and you don't know what a needle is, and the babushka is telling you what it is, you cannot paskin that the needle makes the pupik today. You have to know the reality. It's another dimension. You can't just know the theory, you have to know the theory in the context of the real world, because the real world changes the theory. It's another dimension. And to properly understand any idea, you have to understand that idea in the real world. If you've been sitting here for the last month, one of the things that came up a few times was communism. And I explained to you that if you have a great idea, but it's not a realistic idea, it's not just not a good idea, it's a bad and a cruel one. And the proof is in the history of the world. Communism is the nicest theory man could ever devise. Could you please close the door? Communism is the nicest idea man could devise. You know why? What's communism? Let's be friends, let's share, let's all share. Redistributing the wealth. Communism produced cruelty, which is almost as evil as Hitler. Why? Brilliant idea. It just wasn't realistic. Ideas are only true if they're tested in the real world. There's a Maimer HaChochem. It doesn't say in any Maimer, in any Sara in the Gemara, it's not in the Medrash, not in Chazal, but Chassidus quotes it all the time. Ein Chochem Kamal Anisayin. You're not smart till you test it. You can make the best car in the world. Put it on the road. You can make the best machine in the world. You have to try it out in real time. And oftentimes the machine is perfect. The engineers had it right. The scientists had it right. But the world adds variables. They say, no, you have to fix it. You have to tweak it. You have to change it. It has to be a little different. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So the boys say, I want you to understand what I did this morning. I'm out of time. And I'm not doing questions today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about this again. Then we're going to do the question. Then we're going to review it again. Or maybe I will do questions. I'll see. I just told you two things about ideas. Number one, the truth of ideas depends on knowing the source of the ideas. And number two, the truth of ideas depends on knowing the reality of the ideas. An idea in a brain is a slice that's missing where it came from, and it's missing where it's going to. And if you have an idea that's disconnected from the source of the idea, it can be distorted, like saying an elephant in a tree trunk. And if you have an idea which is not connected to the real world, you may come up with this wonderful idea of taking people's money and giving it to other people and thinking that you're being nice, and you're going to end up with a cruelty which is like ksuva b'Torah. Now these two presentations that I just shared with you are the segue to Das. They're this. If you want to understand the difference between Chochmah and Bina, everything you need to know intellectually is included in Chochmah. Chochmah is the intuitive, creative tool. Bina is the analytical, thorough, departmentalizing tool. Intellectually, Chochmah and Bina are complete systems. Das doesn't change the system. Das is a process that's intellectual. It's in your brain. And of course, as I started this whole scheme of conversations before Yom Tov, Das is a tool. And the meaning of the word tool is at your disposal. That's going to take a theoretical idea and do two big things. It's going to ask, is this idea true in the source of the idea? And is this idea true in the manifest of the idea? So Das is not going to change the idea. But it's going to change your sense of it. It's going to stop being a concept, and it's going to become a knowledge, a fact. And no one will be able to change your minds. No one will be able to change your